Palestine. It's the chant of a violent movement that has found common cause with Hamas. It's a movement that has lost hold of the difference between right and wrong, between good and evil, between light and darkness, barbarism. The chants of the terrorists who pillaged Israel on October 7th are almost indistinguishable from those of Hamas sympathizers here on our own shores. They proclaim that violence is righteous, that rape is justice, and that murder is liberation. They have created a culture of lies that puts a bounty on the heads of peace-loving Jewish Americans. And the insidious spread of this violent ideology has emboldened evil worldview of people, like the one that took the lives of Sarah and Yaron. Where is the outrage for these two young victims? There have been no national protest for them or the many victims of anti-Semitic violence all around this country. No calls in the streets to say their names. No chance for justice or peace. We cannot let these depraved anti-Semitic terrorists silence us. We must stand up and protect our Jewish brothers and sisters. The Republicans and the Democrats here today stand united in that cause, in condemning the violence and the rhetoric that directly aids the peasant. We have a responsibility to recommit ourselves to the cause for which Sarah and Yaron lived and for which they literally gave their lives. That is the cause of peace. I'm reminded of the scripture that says, "Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of God." Tonight we honor two of God's children, tragically lost too soon. I hand it over now to my colleague, the minority leader, Hakeem Jeffries.
Thank you, Speaker Johnson, to all of my colleagues in Congress, to my good friend and former colleague, AJC leader Ted Deutsch, members of AJC, to Ambassador Leiter, members of the embassy, to Noah, Sawson, and all those who have joined us to honor the lives of two innocent young people taken from us prematurely by an act of domestic terrorism. Sarah and Yaron were a beautiful couple, murdered in cold blood, victims of the same deadly anti-Semitism that fueled the attacks in Boulder, the attacks at Governor Josh Shapiro's home in Pennsylvania, and in synagogues, yeshivas, businesses, and communities all across America. We are here to honor the memory of two people who were committed to building bridges, to making the world a better place, to fighting for the Jewish community and the state of Israel. Two people just starting their lives together, on the verge of an engagement. Their deaths are a heart-wrenching tragedy, and we grieve with the family and with the entire community. Anti-Semitism has been a painful reality of Jewish life throughout the world for thousands of years. But now, too many of our Jewish brothers and sisters here in America fear for their safety. In this country, anti-Semitism has been metastasizing like a malignant tumor, and we must all work together to eradicate this cancer. More than a year and a half since the October 7th Hamas attack, our determination to fight anti-Semitism, our resolve to bring home the hostages, and our support for the special relationship between the United States and Israel remains ironclad. This week's Torah portion tells the story of the Israelites finally leaving the foot of Mount Sinai. As they journey through the desert, the people make difficult demands, and Moses cries out to God for help. God then instructs Moses to appoint 70 elders to help shoulder the burden of leadership. The Torah portion teaches us that moments of challenge requires more of us to step forward and lead together. In that spirit, we stand here with the families of Sarah and Yaron and stand with the Jewish community. We will not let you shoulder this burden alone. We must come together in good faith as Democrats and Republicans, standing shoulder to shoulder to defeat anti-Semitism whenever and wherever it may be found. Until we bury it in the ground, never to rise again. That's a moral necessity here in the United States of America. May the memories of Sarah and Yaron be a blessing at all times. And may God bless and watch over the Jewish community in the United States of America during this challenging time. It is now my honor to yield to Ambassador Black.
Speaker Johnson, Minority Leader Jeffries, thank you so much for bringing us together. It's an honor. Members of Congress, President of the American Jewish Committee, Ted Deutsch, family and friends, ladies and gentlemen. We gather here in sorrow, remembrance, and strength to honor the lives of Yaron and Sarah. They were not only our colleagues and friends, they were bridges between the people of Israel and the United States of America. Two young diplomats, soon to be engaged, one Israeli, the other American. They represented the unbreakable bond between our two great nations. They devoted their lives to the values our two countries share. That humans are created in the image of God and charged with the task of pursuing justice and freedom. As we confront the rising tide of anti-Semitism together, I am reminded of the question that Abigail Adams asked her husband John, America's second president. What is America? She was asking for an idea, a conviction. Remember, she wrote, all men would be tyrants if they could. That warning applies not only to lords and kings, but also to silence and indifference. Those who built America were men and women of action, not complacency. The people of Israel, too, are a people of action, not complacency. We did not collapse in the face of tragedy, but turned pain into perseverance, angst into action, hopelessness into hopefulness. Sarah and Yaron believe that America and Israel each hold a unique place in the world. They saw America as the shining city on the hill, and Israel as a light unto the nations. But Sarah and Yaron did not just preach these values, they lived by them. We have too many high-sounding words, Abigail wrote to John, and too few actions that correspond with them. Ladies and gentlemen, our mourning must not end in words alone. Let it awaken in us a fierce defense of what we hold dear, of the virtues that guided the founders of both our great nations. We must demand and tirelessly endeavor for the release of our hostages, kidnapped by Hamas and held in their dungeons. We must not hesitate to condemn those calling for violence against Jews and against all those lovers of Zion. The Intifada has been globalized. And like Orwell's 1984, free, free Palestine means death, death, Israel. It is now incumbent upon all of us to confront it. Today we are challenged to act, to honor the fallen not just with words, but with a renewed commitment to fighting the scourge of hate, fighting the demonization and delegitimization of the State of Israel. The partnership between Israel and the United States is about the belief that justice and freedom must be defended in every synagogue, in every church, mosque, and on every university campus. In Judaism, we say that one's memory shall be for a blessing. On the steps of this hallowed hall, I recall the timeless words of President Abraham Lincoln. It is for us to be here dedicated to the great task remaining before us, that from these honored dead, we take increased devotion to that cause for which they here gave the last full measure of devotion. That we here highly resolve that these dead shall not have died in vain. That this nation, under God, shall have a new birth of freedom. May the memory of Sarah and Yaron be for a blessing, for a renewal of our bond in full measure and devotion. I'm honored to call my good friend, Ted Deutsch, the American Jewish Committee.
Speaker Johnson, thank you for bringing us together. Leader Jeffries, members of Congress, Ambassador Leiter and your team, thanks to everyone for being here. Thanks for standing with the Jewish community at this moment of deep pain and fear. I stood on these steps for many events as a member of Congress. This is not how I want to come back here. And in the immediate aftermath of the slaughter of two beautiful young souls and the attack against peaceful marchers calling for the release of hostages who were set on fire, it's not why I want to be here, but I know I speak for the Jewish community when I tell you that my heart is full with gratitude for this event and your participation in it. I'll try to keep this brief. There are a few things that must be said, 3 points I will make. First of all, anti-Semitism is anti-Semitism, period. There should be no more debate about which kind of anti-Semitism is more dangerous or which we need to be more afraid of. After what happened to Sarah Milgrim and Yaron Lischinsky outside of HACDC's event of humanitarian diplomacy, and what happened in Boulder, Colorado, it is clear every anti-Semitism is and has been deadly from the extreme left to the extreme right. There is anti-Semitism on the far left. These two attacks in the arson on Governor Shapiro's residence show that, and we all must condemn it. There's anti-Semitism on the far right. Poway, the attack of Tree of Life, show that, and we all must condemn it. Both must be condemned by everyone. No excuses, because if you can only see anti-Semitism when it is convenient, then we're not seeing it at all. Point 2, this is not normal. The obsession with demonizing Israel and blaming Israel for every injustice in the world is the current socially acceptable form of anti-Semitism. It has sanitized hate. There is a straight line from the demonization of Israel, the dangerous lies that people peddle about the one Jewish state, to the anti-Semitic violence that impacts real people. We are grateful for everything Congress is doing right now in a bipartisan manner to bolster security for our community. But that cannot be the total answer. It just isn't normal for any group in America to have to pray and gather and mourn behind armed guards, checkpoints, and metal detectors. No community in America should have to live like this, but this is reality for the entirety of the American Jewish community. Point 3, this cannot be partisan. When calls to globalize the Intifada and chants from the river to the sea are screamed at protests, these must be called called out for what they are. They are not slogans for a social justice movement. They are incitement to violence. Everyone must call that out forcefully and with clarity. Words matter. For generations, they've had deadly consequences for me, for my family, for my people, for Sarah and Yaron. This shouldn't be hard. The fight against Jewish hate cannot be political. We cannot allow vigils like this to become the norm. We must act now. May Sarah and Yaron's memory be a blessing. May the world know no more sorrow. And may the hostages come home now. I'm now honored to invite up Noah Ginnisar, Yaron's supervisor and Yaron's friend.
On behalf of the Lischinsky family, Yaron's parents, Ruth and Daniel, his brothers, Hanan, Gabriel, and Benoni, and his sister, Edith. Thank you from the bottom of our hearts for coming together this evening to honor Yaron and Sarah. It is still hard for us to believe that Yaron is no longer with us. We miss the beautiful soul that he was, the wonderful son and brother, the loving uncle he was across the ocean. In the days since the vile terrorist attack, we have heard from so many people who knew Yaron. We learned of different aspects of his personality, the way in which he developed professionally at the Embassy of Israel. We heard what a loyal friend and trusted colleague he was. Most of all, we learned of the strong love he and Sarah shared and their plans for their future together. We collect the stories of his life, and we are heartbroken that we will miss seeing his plans come into fruition. Yaron accomplished so much in his 30 years. He had an unending thirst for knowledge and was willing to spend hours to better understand and analyze any issue he tackled. He loved soccer, had an appreciation for art, and was an avid photographer. He was of deep faith and knew how to find beauty and order in every occasion. He was the first to volunteer for any task, and he wanted to give of himself for a life of purpose and service. Yaron loved the 3 years he spent at the Embassy of Israel, which he hoped would be his first step towards a career as an Israeli diplomat. These years in Washington, D.C. were for him a chance to live his dream. Here, he spread his wings and learned to fulfill his potential. He appreciated every interaction, every person he met. He collected all these moments as memories, which he and Sarah were supposed to recall many years later. We, Yaron's family, are grateful for all the good this city brought out in Yaron. We want to remember Washington, D.C. as Yaron saw it, a city devoted to the pursuit of justice and peace, a platform to connect between people and nations. Yaron loved this city and the time he spent here. He took in all the monuments, breathed in the history and culture that D.C. offers, waited each year for the cherry blossoms. He was proud of every meeting he attended at the State Department and here at the U.S. Congress, think conferences and diplomatic receptions. This was the beautiful backdrop for his final 3 years. We will not allow Yaron's vision of D.C. to become tainted by the horrific anti-Semitic and anti-Israel attack that took him and Sarah from us. We will hold the Washington, D.C. Yaron loved close to our hearts. Please continue your important work in their honor, and may their light shine upon us all. In closing, we share with you these 2 verses, the first from Isaiah, which represents so well what Yaron stood for. לשפט בין הגויים והוכיח לעמים רבים, חיטטו חרבותם לעיתים וחניתותיהם למזמרות. לא יישא גוי אל גוי חרב ולא ינהגו עוד מלחמה. He will judge between the nations and will settle disputes for many peoples. He will beat their swords into plowshares and their spears into pruning hooks. Nation will not take up sword against nation, nor will they train for war anymore. And this verse from the book of Revelations, in hope of eternal comfort for all. And God shall wipe away all tears from their eyes, and there shall be no more death, neither sorrow nor crying, neither shall there be any more pain, for the former things are passed away. Thank you, and God bless you all. I now invite Substantive Son, your colleague from the Embassy of Israel, Sarah's supervisor, who will speak on behalf of the Milgrim family.
Nancy and Bob Milgrim, the parents of our beloved Sarah and her brother Jacob, wanted to convey their gratitude for the memorial service here at the Capitol for Sarah and Yaron. Although they are both, and Jacob as well, not here with us in person, they are honored to be with us in spirit as we all gather under the shadow of their heartbreak. In the wake of the unimaginable tragedy and the unspeakable pain, Sarah's presence continues to be felt among all of us. The values she advocated for, the light she brought into the world, left on. As the director of civil society outreach at our embassy, Sarah was a bridge builder, a believer in human dignity, and a strong advocate for inclusion. She believed that diplomacy is not simply about policy, it is about people. She opened new doors, fostered dialogue, and built bridges that few people before her dared even to cross. In college, Sarah gave the following advice to her fellow students. I think it is really important to do things that make you uncomfortable, or things that may not be the easiest route. That's exactly what Sarah did. She took responsibility for those whose voices were not always heard, for helping to carry the burden when others could not. Her mission, including connecting with young adults, LGBTQ+, diverse community and ethnic groups, women's organizations, legal professionals, climate advocates, and many more, far beyond the walls of the embassy, even beyond her portfolio. Sarah enhanced partnerships with the White House, State Department, and countless advocacy groups, and arranged dozens of delegations to and from Israel. Perhaps her most difficult and most noble mission was making sure the world heard the stories of Israeli women who were raped and murdered on October 7th. She ensured the truth was told, even when others stayed shamefully silent. Sarah made sure the officials at the highest levels in Washington, D.C. and at the United Nations knew their stories. Sarah invited the spirit of Tikkun Olam. When Sarah assumed her position at the embassy, it cost her many familiar friendships. Nonetheless, from that void, she built a new, resilient circle of young leaders who shared her values. And in that circle, her love story with Yaron blossomed. In Nancy's words, Sarah, as your mother, I taught you to have poise and grace, to stand up for what you believe in, and to do what you know is right. I am so very proud of all you accomplished in your much too short life. And her father, Bob, continues saying, Sarah, your life was dedicated to Tikkun Olam, preparing the world. As your father, you taught me the true meaning of those words. We will carry on Sarah's legacy, not with slogans or statements, but with action, consistency, and care. Thank you for giving us the space to remember Sarah, not only for how she died, but also for how she truly lived. With courage, with compassion, and with a heart wide enough to hold the whole world. May her memory be a blessing, and may we each be a blessing in her name.
Would you join us now in a moment of silence for Sarah